Hey everyone, welcome to the video. Let's go over the 12-game NBA slate for today on Draftkings, and thankfully there's a normal slate. Yesterday we only had the single-game showdown slate, so I didn't even do anything for that. Then the day before that, we had the Martin Luther King Day slates, where there was like 4 different slates. There was the 2 p.m. slate, the 5 p.m. slate, the 9:30 p.m. slate, the 7:30 p.m. slate. So it's a little bit hectic, but thankfully we have one main slate today, so I'm looking forward to breaking this down. There's lots of good plays on this slate. We also have the premiere of Zion Williamson, so that's going to be very exciting as well, so we'll talk about everything. But before we continue, as always, if you guys could just leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at Pennell16. And what I'm showing you right now, this is my NBA spreadsheet I build every single night for the NBA season. It's got pretty much everything you need on here for to help you build lineups, or just everything you need to look at for tonight's slate. That's what I use to help make these videos, and that's what I use to help build my lineups every single night. It's got everything you need on here: the player info, the matchups, the Vegas totals, the pace of play, advanced statistics like points per minute, usage rates, all that good stuff that I love to use on my videos. Then you have the normal DraftKings stats per game on here. Then on the very right, you have my projections as well. And you also get my defense versus position chart that updates automatically just, I guess, throughout the day. But, you can tell, you can easily identify what's good matchups, what's bad matchups. Obviously, if you're going up against Atlanta and Cleveland, great matchups. If you're going up against teams like Denver, Miami, not very good matchups. And I also have my cheat sheet and core plays, as well as my Discord chat available as well. If you're interested, links on the description below. And without further ado, let's get into today's slate. I'll just pause this really quick and head over to DraftKings. So you'll see me in a second. Alright, so we're back, and first up we're going to talk about LeBron. I know James Harden's on this slate, but I personally do not want to pay that much for James Harden. I really don't think it's necessary on the slate. I just think there's some better plays that are a little bit cheaper. So we're going to start off with LeBron. Now, he's not a must on this slate by any means, but this is a good matchup versus the Knicks, who do rank bottom 10 versus guards. I know AD is back, but he was on a minutes limit in the last game, and he played actually pretty poorly. I believe he only had, 4 rebounds? I can't remember exactly, but it was less than 30 fantasy points. Did not have a good game. I do expect his minutes to be ramped up a little bit. I don't expect that kind of performance moving forward, but still, LeBron should be the main driver of this offense while AD works his way back at least the next couple games. And on the season, 1.55 points per minute, a 31.6% usage rate. Now, I will say there is blowout risk here. They are double-digit favorites, so that could be a little bit of concern. I know last time they played the Knicks, I believe this was a blowout. So that's a little bit of cause of concern, but I did want to talk about LeBron because this is a good spot for him, but not a must by any means on this slate. I do expect Kawhi to sit for rest. It's just what he's been doing all season, which is a shame because it's a really good matchup versus Atlanta. But we'll talk about like the secondary plays on the Clippers, which would now become main priority plays if Kawhi and Paul George both happen to be out, or if one's out. Either way, I'll talk about that during this slate. But Karl-Anthony Towns, he's looking like my favorite spend up on the slate at 10,400. I mean, this is an elite spot versus Chicago. And he did play 35 minutes in the last game, so I really don't think we should be cautious about a minutes limit. And it's his most minutes he's played since returning. He had 28 minutes, 27 minutes, 35 minutes. Really can't ask for too much more than 35 minutes, so he should be a full go here versus Chicago. And this is an absolute smash spot. I was playing this guy all the time in the early portion of the year before the injury, and he was just balling out most nights. And I had no problem going back to the well here versus a terrible rebounding team in Chicago. They ranked 30th versus centers and power forwards. He's at 1.52 points per minute on the season, 28% usage rate. I don't know who's going to be able to stop Karl-Anthony Towns on Chicago, so he's my favorite spend up as of right now. I've not seen ownership projections, but I would expect them to carry some ownership versus Chicago. I mean, if you just look on DraftKings, it's going to, what does it say? The Chicago's bright green, 27th. So, it's a great matchup for Karl-Anthony Towns, and I would definitely be looking to fit him in my lineups if the salary cap lets me do so. So, do like Karl-Anthony Towns, but I also said there's not a lot of value on this slate, so I'm not totally sure how easy it's going to be to spend up for a big guy, but depending on injury news throughout the day, we'll see. But do like Karl-Anthony Towns quite a bit. Then we'll skip a little bit, and we're going to look at Trae Young here at 9,500. So he's just a bit too cheap. He had 73 points in the last game with 9,500. Price did not move, and this is actually an okay spot versus the Clippers. They are mid-pack versus guards. And the thing is, Patrick Beverley left last night's game with a sore, was it right ankle? I can't remember correctly, but if he's out, I mean, that's obviously a boost because he's one of their best defenders, and Trae Young, he'd be guarding Trae Young. So if he's out, I mean, Trae Young 9,500 is a very good price, and this should be a pretty good game because I'm assuming Kawhi's out, and if Paul George is out, this game will stay close. And even if Paul George is in, this game should stay a little bit close with Kawhi Leonard being out. And on the season, he's at 1.4 points per minute, about a 35% usage rate. This is going to be a fast-paced game. Both teams are top 10 in pace of play, with Atlanta being, I believe, 5th, and the Clippers are 9th. So, and if Patrick Beverley's out, I mean, Trae Young gets a boost on offense. So, I mean, I really don't see a reason not to like Trae Young. And if Paul George happens to be in, you could little game stack that up with Paul George and Trae Young. They don't break the bank. So you could certainly look this way in GPPs. Probably wouldn't play Trae Young in cash as of right now. I don't build lineups. Start building lineups till an hour before lock because it just makes no sense because of injury news. So I don't want to get like stuck on a lineup. But Trae Young, 9,500 is not a bad price for him. So certainly look his way in probably all formats. Andre Drummond is questionable. Let me see if they updated the news since I last looked. Nope, still questionable after he got hit in the face in the last game. So we'll talk about if he's out, but really don't have interest either way if he's in or out. I'd rather play Trae Young at 9,500 than Andre Drummond at 9,400. Jokic, there's a lot of injuries on Denver, and it's a good game environment versus Houston. But actually, Houston's their best defensively versus big men. They're 7th versus centers, and then everything else they're pretty much bottom 10. So, with all the injuries though, Jokic is at over 1.4 points per minute, almost a 30% usage rate. But I just don't really see myself paying 9,200 for Jokic. Now the thing is though, he's always low owned because there's just usually better plays around him in that price range. But I really don't see myself going that way. But it is a nice pace up spot here versus the Nuggets. They're one of the slowest teams in the NBA, and Houston's one of the fastest teams, top 5 in pace of play. Triple-double threat every single night. I wouldn't hate the idea of using Jokic. He's a little hit or miss, I will say. 41 points, 56, 51's fine, but then 38, 51's good, 43, 55, 72, 35, 29. He gets in kind of these cold, hot stretches, but 9,200, it's a bit much, but he's fine in tournaments just because he's going to be low owned, especially on a 12-game slate. I can't see a lot of people playing Jokic. Scrolling down the list here, Zach LaVine's just a little bit too expensive. I know he's been playing very well besides the last game and the game versus Philly, but 68, 52, 39, 44, 56, 51, 45, 52. He's been playing very well. It's a good matchup versus Minnesota. They played the fastest pace of play out of any team so far this season, and he's been pretty good. He's going to shoot the ball a ton. He shot the ball 31 times versus Cleveland, but I'm probably not going to pay $9K for Zach LaVine. It's just not something I really like to pay up for. Let's see. Brandon Ingram, so Zion's going to be back. I'm only expecting him to play about 15 to 20 minutes, but it kind of throws a wrench in everything, so I'm probably not going to pay $8,900 for Brandon Ingram, despite this game being like an elite game environment. We have the highest total on the slate here. It's 237.5. If there was no Zion, I'd be interested in Brandon Ingram, but it just kind of throws a wrench in everything, so I'm probably going to pass. Let me see if they updated Paul George. Nope, nothing. No updates since last night, but he did join the team on the road trip, and if he does end up playing, because I assume Kawhi is probably going to sit this one out because of rest purposes, because he just doesn't play on back-to-backs. So if they push Paul George to play, 8,800 versus Atlanta is just too good of a price to pass up on. Now we'd have to see how the minutes is, but if he's getting 30-plus minutes at 8,800 versus Atlanta, I'd have to be interested. They're the worst defensive team in the NBA. They rank 30th, dead last versus forwards. They're both top 10 in pace of play. And with Kawhi off the court, George has a 35.1% usage rate and almost 1.6 points per minute, so 8,800. If he's going to get like 30-plus minutes, you almost become a lock on the slate. So you have to have interest. If he happens to be out, we'll talk about it. That'd be boost to Lou and Harrell, but when we get there, we'll talk about it. But if George happens to be in a full go, 8,800 is a really good price versus Atlanta. Jimmy Butler, he's listed as probable, I believe. Yeah, he's listed as probable, so he's going to be good to go for this game. And, anyone versus Washington, I will play. And he's just one of the safer plays pretty much every single night. It's pretty much a safe bet for about 35 to 40 points, if not more. I know he's had a couple of bad games mixed in there, like versus San Antonio again. But he's going to play about 35 minutes, and he's over 1.2 points per minute on the season. Great matchup versus Washington, one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA, bottom 3 defensive team. They also are top 10 in pace of play, so it's a little bit of a pace-up spot for Jimmy Butler. He's at 1.22 points per minute. He's a fine play, 8,500. I wouldn't talk you off of Jimmy Butler. Is he getting graded out as a great point per dollar option on this play on this slate? Probably not, but he's an okay mid-range play at 8K, so Jimmy Butler is on my radar, just not going on a way to fit him in, but if he ends up fitting in at the end of your lineup, he's fine. It's versus Washington. Everyone plays good versus Washington. And you got Bam, his teammate, 8,400 versus Washington. Same thing. He's fine at 8,400. He seems a little bit expensive here, but it's actually kind of where he's been priced around. But he's been playing well. 40, 54, 39, 46. Good matchup versus Washington. They do rank 28th versus centers, pace up spot. Pretty much everything I said about Jimmy Butler. A little bit lower on a point per minute basis, so I'd much rather play Jimmy Butler considering he's only 100 price difference. But, Bam's fine. He should be able to eat versus Washington. That's one on the list. DeMar DeRozan. This guy has been just talking about consistency, this guy's been great. I mean, 44, 45, 51, 49, 44, 62, 44, 37, 40, 37. You're not disappointed about any of those games. Now, his price is up to the moon. He was in that high 6K, low 7K range. Now he's up to 8,200, but he's been playing very well. And I played him at 8,100 versus Atlanta, and it paid off. And he's playing 35-plus minutes a game. He's doing a little bit of everything in the stat sheet. I mean, he's pretty much been a triple-double threat recently. 9 boards, 8 assists, 18 points. 9 boards, 9 assists, 20 points. 9 boards, 9 assists, 25 points. He's just missing a triple-double every single night, doing a little bit of everything. I think he's a very safe play, especially versus New Orleans, because I do want exposure to this game. We have an elite game environment here. 237 total, tight 3.5 point spread, and 2 bad defensive teams facing off. And New Orleans, I mean, they suck versus guards and forwards. I know they're the worst team in the league versus point guards, but a little bit better versus shooting guards and small forwards, but still not anything you'd have to be worried about. They're bottom 10 versus those positions. In New Orleans is second in pace of play, so we get a big pace-up spot here. He's at 1.14 points per minute. He's been playing great recently, so DeMar DeRozan, I think he's a very, very safe mid-range play. I mean, he should be able to get you 40, 45-plus points. I mean, he's just doing everything in the stat sheet, so I have nothing against DeMar DeRozan. I think he's a very solid mid-range play on today's slate. I believe Drew Holiday is he's probable, so you don't have to worry about that. I think, was it the last game he balled out in? Yeah, 52 fantasy points. It was his first game back since January 4th. Was not expecting that, but with Zion back, it's going to throw a wrench and everything, and all these guys are overpriced anyway, so probably going to have to pass there. D'Lo, I love playing D'Lo, but really not a lot of interest versus Utah. Sabonis versus Phoenix is fine. He's 7,900. I mean, he's just one of those safe plays. I know he's actually had 2 bad games in 2 out of the last 4 games. But I know the one game he got in foul trouble, that was versus Minnesota. He picked up 5 fouls, not quick, but he picked up 2 fouls quick, and then he had, I believe, his 5th foul early in the 4th, so he barely played in that game. Then the last game versus Utah, kind of a blowout, so only played 28 minutes, so we're going to give him passes there. But otherwise, he's pretty much a safe bet for 40-plus points. I mean, the guy's at 1.24 points per minute on the season, about 25% usage rate. He's a safe double-double play every single night with, 20 real-life point upside. I mean, he's got near 60-point upside. He's shown it in 2 of the last 4 games, one versus Denver, which was a tough matchup, and then one versus Minnesota, which is a softer matchup. But Sabonis is a nice, safe play. It's a nice pace-up spot versus Phoenix, and they are one of the worst. No, I shouldn't say one of. I guess they are. They're bottom 10 versus centers, and not that great versus power forwards either. So Sabonis, I think he's a pretty solid play at 7,900. Would not talk you off of playing Sabonis. Let's see. All right, below him, though, Donovan Mitchell. I'd rather play Donovan Mitchell versus Golden State. Now, I know there might be a little bit of blowout risk versus Golden State, considering they are pretty bad, although that last game versus Portland was the absolute nuts. I mean, that was a really fun night. I don't think I've made a video since that night, but that was a really fun night. I full game stacked that pretty much because Draymond Green happened to be out, and then Glenn Robinson happened to be out, so I just had D'Lo, Alec Burks, which he went for 60 points, which was awesome. Then I had Jordan Poole. He ended up having 22. Then I had Damian Lillard, Hassan Whiteside, and you guys know what they did. They got like almost 200 points. So, yeah, that was a really fun slate, but I don't even know why I started talking about that. Oh, because they're playing Golden State. Yeah, Donovan Mitchell, he's fine. I mean, Golden State's bottom 5 versus guards. And now it does hurt a little bit that Mike Conley's back. It's going to hurt his usage rate a little bit in points per minute, but still, he's got a 31% usage rate on the season just in general, 1.13 points per minute. I mean, it's a good spot versus Golden State. Wouldn't hate the idea of using Donovan Mitchell. We saw his upside versus New Orleans. He's had, it was overtime, but he still had over 50 points at the end of regulation. So Mitchell, he's fine at 7,800. I think he's a pretty solid play. Just a little expensive, but I do think he's fine in GPPs. Scrolling down the list here a little bit. Jason Tatum, these Celtics are like okay priced. Gordon Hayward's actually a little bit too cheap, but with everyone healthy, they're just kind of priced correctly, so you're not really getting a value. But, if you want exposure to Boston versus Memphis, this game has a 232 total, which is, I believe, the second highest on the slate, which means the Celtics would have one of the highest implied team totals on the slate. I mean, they're fine. I mean, Jason Tatum, with everyone healthy, he had a good game versus LA. He only played 29 minutes on a blowout, but he hit 5 threes, ended up having 5 boards, 3 assists, but 27 real-life points, had 42 fantasy points. He's fine versus Memphis. They're one of the worst teams in the NBA on defense, and they also play fast. So it's a really good game environment for the Celtics. So if you want to stack some of these guys up, I totally get it. I'm not going to grade out as a great point per dollar option plays, but I mean, they're fine. You could also look Kemba Walker's way. He is listed as probable. I know he's got the questionable tag, but he should be good to go. Now, I never get Kemba right. I know I tweeted the one night, does anyone ever get Kemba right? Everyone commented no. So I guess you guys understand my pain. Like, I can never get this guy right. The one time I played him one time, it was before Christmas. Like, I had like 1 real life point. Like what is that? And then the next game I'll get like 60 points. It's just how it goes for Kemba. I don't really like playing the guy. If you want to play him versus Memphis, I totally get it. They're one of the worst teams in the league versus guards. Like I said, high team total for the Celtics, but Not someone I really like to play just because he screws me all the time. So just know they are in play versus Memphis. But one of my favorite plays on the entire slate is Lou Williams here at 7,300. I would expect him to be popular just because he's got that bright green 30th in the matchup column. But this is a great spot for Lou. So we have potentially Paul George out, Kawhi Leonard out, and potentially Patrick Beverley out. That's a lot of names for the Clippers being out. And even if just one of those guys is out, it's going to be a big boost to Lou. So we'll go over this now. So like I said, it's a good matchup versus Atlanta. I talked about that when I talked about Paul George. They are just the worst team in the league on defense, and they also play very fast. So both teams are top 10 in pace of play. So a fast-paced game like this suits a guy like Lou Williams well, who has no problem putting up a lot of shots. And if just Kawhi's out, Lou has a 31.6% usage rate and 1.27 points per minute. That's great at 7,300. I would play him if just Kawhi's out. If both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are out, he's got a 34% usage rate and at 1.4 points per minute. And if Patrick Beverley's out as well, like all three of these guys, he's got about a 35% usage rate and 1.5 points per minute at 7,300. Great matchup versus Atlanta. He's one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. And if all three of those guys are out, he's an absolute lock button for me. So Lou Williams, definitely someone I want to get exposure to. I think this is an awesome spot for Lou. He has 50-point upside if he's hitting his shots. So there's no problem putting up double-digit threes. Yeah, I said that right. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he'll put up 20-plus shots. No problem. So Lou Williams, like him quite a bit. One of my favorite plays in the entire slate. If I can find a good picture of him on the internet, I might just make him the cover photo for this. Just depends if I can find a nice transparent picture to make it easy on me. But yeah, I do like Lou. Bradley Beal's fine at 7,200. So the matchup's not good versus Miami, but he just feels a bit cheap here. He played okay in the last game. He had 39 fantasy points in 33 minutes. I'm not really going to complain about that, especially if you're 7,300. And I know he's not been great returning from injury, but he's been okay. And, he saw his minutes ramp up to 33 in the last game. And he only played 23 versus Toronto, but that was also a blowout. 27 minutes versus Chicago, 27 minutes versus Utah. I expect his minutes to be close to 35 tonight. And, he's got 39% usage rate in the last game, so he was fine. He also went 5.5x, which I will take. It's not, like I said, not a good matchup versus Miami, but 7,200 for a guy that's averaging 1.3 points per minute. Bradley Beal is not a bad play at 7,200. He should grade out as actually a decent point per dollar option in this price range. You can also look at Malcolm Brogdon at 7,100 versus Phoenix. Nice pace-up spot here for the Pacers. Again, not going to grade out as a great point per dollar option play like I just said with Sabonis, but it's a good matchup. They are bottom 10 versus guards. And Malcolm Brogdon does a little bit of everything, so he's a pretty safe play most nights. Again, they got blown out versus Utah. Only played 22 minutes, so we get a pass. But if you look at the three previous games, 37 points, 34 points, 37 points. That's probably what you can expect here versus Phoenix. He's at 1.16 points per minute, going to play 30-plus minutes in this game, 26.5% usage rate. He's a pretty solid play. So Malcolm Brogdon, definitely on my radar. Derrick Rose, so if Andre Drummond happens to be out, Derrick Rose would be okay at 7K. Not someone I'm probably playing cash games, but he's been playing very, very well. If we just look at the game log since like January 5th, 43, 39, 40, 32, 40, 34, 45, 32. It seems a bit expensive at 7K, but this is a correct price because the guy's been playing very, very well. He hasn't scored less than 20 points since January 2nd, so he's been very, very consistent. If Drummond's out, he's at over 1.4 points per minute and near a 36% usage rate. And it's a good matchup versus Sacramento. They do struggle versus guards. It's going to be a slow-paced game, but D Rose's numbers are too good to ignore with Drummond off the court and just in general, really. So he's been playing very well. 7K is not a bad price for Derrick Rose. Certainly look his way in GPPs. Scrolling down the list a little bit here, LaMarcus Aldridge at 6,800. He's a fine play. He had a rough stretch where he was in the 20s for a while, but past three games have been fine. 37 points, 36 points, 35 points. Probably something of what you can expect here versus New Orleans. And I will say that Derek Favors is also questionable for the New Orleans Pelicans. So if he's out, he's one of their best defenders. It's also going to be a boost to LaMarcus Aldridge. And like I said, we have an elite game environment here. Highest total on the slate. I don't want to sound redundant, but this is what it is. So he's fine. 1.11 points per minute. He's going to play 30-plus minutes. I think he's a safe bet for 35 to 40 points, if not more, here versus New Orleans. So LaMarcus Aldridge, very solid play, just like his teammate DeMar DeRozan. And I think I skipped. No, I did not skip Harrell. They're the same price. So Montrezl Harrell, 6,800. Again, he'd be one of the better plays on the slate if everyone's out for the Clippers. He's just a good play in general if one of them's out. But he has not been playing well recently. But again, there'd be a lot of usage. And my dog, it must be the mailman. I should probably get him. Okay, so he seems calmed down for now, but Montrezl Harrell, kind of just like Lou Williams, he will get a boost with everyone out. with just Kawhi out, he's got a 30% usage rate, 1.24 points per minute. If Paul George is out, 31% usage rate, 1.31 points per minute. And if Patrick Beverley's out, really doesn't affect him too much, but he does get a slight boost. So Montrezl Harrell, it's a good matchup versus Atlanta. Definitely want exposure to him. They're bottom 10 versus centers. I mean, he should probably get 35 plus points if everyone's out for the Clippers. So Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell, potentially probably one of the best plays on the entire slate. So certainly look his way. Keep your eyes out for the news on the Clippers, because I know Leonard's probably more than likely going to sit. Paul George is questionable, and Patrick Beverley is questionable as well. I don't want to bring up everyone for the Celtics, but Jaylen Brown's fine. I mean, he actually is questionable for this game, but he should be good to go. I don't see why he wouldn't play, because he did play in the last game versus the... Or no. No, yeah, he played in the last game versus the Lakers. Okay, sorry, I had to pause for a second. I had to look it up. He actually picked up a new injury. I was thinking it was still a thumb injury, but I was like, well, he played anyway, so I wasn't sure. But he is questionable, so if he actually does happen to miss, we could upgrade guys like Jason Tatum, Kemba Walker, and Gordon Hayward. So if he is out, I mean, it's a great spot versus Memphis. So if actually, we should probably root for him to be out and sit this one out, just so we can have some better plays some better mid-range plays from the Celtics players. So keep your eyes out on the news for Jaylen Brown. Said he's going to be reevaluated during shoot-around. Let's see. Just going down a little bit. These couple of these Raptors seem a little bit too cheap. I'm not really that interested versus Philly because it's a good defensive squad. But, I mean, Lowry at 6,600 and Fred VanVleet at 6,600. That just seems a little cheap here. I'm not like too interested in these guys. But you could look. I'm not going to pull them up just because I feel like I've talked about almost every player on the slate. But they do seem a little bit cheap. I will say that. But Michael Porter Jr. is someone I do want to talk about here versus Houston. Now, I know he's priced to the moon at 6,600, but he's been on a tear recently. 37 points, 47, 24, 48. He's been playing very, very well. Very, very well. He's now 63 on 6,500. I know it seems expensive, but he has been playing pretty well, doing a little bit of everything in the stat sheet. He's gotten a couple of double-doubles as well. And this is a really good spot versus Houston. With everyone off the court for Denver, Gary Harris is going to be out. Jamal Murray is going to be out. Paul Millsap's going to be out. He should see about 30 minutes, if not more, here. And with all those guys off the court, he's at 1.21 points per minute. That's pretty darn good in a 20% usage rate. I mean, I know he seems expensive at 6,600 because he was in that 3K range, but 1.21 points per minute, and you're going to see about 30 minutes. That's actually not a bad price for someone going up against Houston. A nice pace-up spot. They're top 5 in pace-up play. One of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. They're bottom 3 versus forwards. We got a 229.5 point total here. Michael Porter's actually not that bad of a play at 6,600. So you can certainly look his way in all formats. Let's see, scrolling down the list here. I want to find Gordon Hayward. I think he's 5,800 if I remember correctly. Yeah, he's 5,800. So if Jaylen Brown's out, he's probably one of the better plays on the entire slate, just because it opens up more usage. Just in general, he's at 1 point per minute. He's a point per minute guy. He's going to see about 35 minutes. If Jaylen Brown's out, that boosts up to close to 1.1 points per minute. So he'd become a very good play. And he's been pretty good the 3 out of the last 4 games. 38 points, 44 points, 33 points. Played pretty well in that last game versus the Lakers, where everyone was healthy. And like I said, he's still below 6K. I didn't say that before, but like I said, he's cheap. I said that earlier. He's below 6K. He should not be below 6K. He should probably be about 6,500. He's kind of like a 6,500 player. 5,600 was way too cheap, so I did play him versus the Lakers. 5,800 is still way too cheap versus Memphis, especially a team that's ranked 28th versus small forwards. Pace-up spot, over a point per minute guy. One of the highest team totals on the slate. Gordon Hayward just makes sense to me at 5,800. I could expect him to have some ownership as well. So he actually does great as one of the better, cheaper mid-range plays on this slate. See, scrolling down a little bit. A lot of these guys I don't have a lot of interest in. Jeremy Grant, his price came up, but he's okay. He actually played really well in the last game. 33 points in 32 minutes. Good spot versus Houston, but 5,600 is a little expensive, but he's going to be about a point per minute guy with everyone off the court. So you could look his way. Don't want to go too in-depth on him just because he's not my favorite player in the world. Patrick Beverley's questionable, like I said earlier, so that could open up some more value and just boost to guys like Lou Williams, Harrell, even Landry Shamet. But Murray, I want to talk about Murray from San Antonio just because I want exposure to this game. So he's pretty hit or miss because his minutes are a little sporadic, but he is good on a point per minute basis. He's at 1.1 points per minute. But these minutes are a little bit over the place, 24, 22, 33 versus Atlanta, 26, 21, 24. So he's not a safe play by any means, but you could look his way in GPPs just because New Orleans is ranked 30th, dead last versus point guards. He's good on a point per minute basis. If he can flirt with 30 minutes, he'd probably be a pretty good play. He played okay in the last game. He had 27 points, but I mean, he's got 30-plus point upside here, so I don't hate the idea of using Murray versus New Orleans just if you want exposure to this game, but not one of my favorite plays on the slate. Scrolling down a little bit. Zion. So I should probably talk about Zion. I'm not going to play him tonight just because he's only going to get about 15 to 20 minutes in his first NBA game ever. So not totally sure how he's going to end up playing. I assume when he's on the court, he's going to look pretty good. But 15, 20 minutes, I just can't do it at 5K. If he was around 4K, which he shouldn't be, but if he was, I'd probably have some interest. But I expect him to be a little bit over a point per minute tonight. So let's say if he gets 20 minutes, let's just give him the max 20 minutes just to be nice. Probably get 20 to 25 points if he's playing well. So I'm probably going to have to pass, but he might have some ownership just because people are going to be excited to play him. But I can't do it just because his minutes are going to be a little sporadic. So I think there's better plays on the slate. But I am excited to see Zion play. I'm sure most of you guys are as well. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be tuning into that game. And it's the highest over-under on the slate too. So you never know. You could look out and him get 30 points in 20 minutes. But I don't think I'm going to take the risk on tonight's slate. And really, there's no one else to talk about. I mean, actually, I should say there's a couple guys. Monty Morris from Denver, if you just want exposure to Denver. Where's he? I believe he's 4,400, if I remember correctly. Or it might be more. Let's hope not. I'll just have to search him. No, he's 4,800, so that kind of sucks. I was thinking he was 4,400, but I mean, he saw 36 minutes in the last game versus Minnesota, had 27 fantasy points. It's not great, but it's not bad either. It's okay. I mean, 4,700 that's not too bad. But he's 4,800 tonight. Decent matchup versus Houston. They do rank bottom 10 versus guards, and it's a nice pace-up spot. Pretty high total here. And he's only at 0.78 points per minute with everyone off the court, but that's not too bad at 4,800 if he's going to get 35 minutes. So you could certainly look his way. Not my favorite play in the slate, but Monty Morris, just if you want some exposure to the Nuggets with everyone injured, you can certainly do so. So Monty Morris on my radar. And if Drummond happens to miss, you could look at the let me just click on Detroit here just to make it easier. So you could look at guys like Markieff Morris and Christian Wood. Now, Markieff Morris is listed as, okay, he's listed as probable. I was making sure they didn't throw me a curveball. And he got listed as questionable randomly. But so if Drummond's out, Markieff Morris is at 0.96 points per minute. And at 4,200, that's not a bad price tag. Now, Sacramento's okay defensively, and they play slow. But 4,200 if Drummond's out, definitely sees a boost. Should see, about 25, if not more minutes. So you can certainly look his way, as well as his teammate Christian Wood, who is 4K. Now, he's probably not going to get as big in minutes as Markieff Morris would, but he's much better on a point per minute basis. He's at 1.32 points per minute with Andre Drummond off the court. He can play. He's a good player, especially on a point per minute basis. He saw 26 minutes versus New Orleans, had 41 points. Only saw 8 minutes versus Boston, 5 points. But then he saw 16 minutes versus Atlanta, 27 points, 13 versus Washington, 14 points. If he gets like 22 minutes tonight, I wouldn't be too far-fetched to think he can get 25-plus points at 4K. It's not bad. So Christian Wood would be on my radar. And you could also look Landry's way on the Clippers if, everyone's out. If all three are, if George is in and Beverly's in, I'm going to have no interest. But if Beverly happens to miss this game, he did end up playing 36 minutes last night, had 25 fantasy points. That's not bad for being a 3,800 guy. So it's a great spot versus Atlanta, fast-paced game. I think he could trip his fall his way into 18-plus points, which is not bad at 3,800, and should see 30-plus minutes. So Landry Shamet, not a bad play. That's pretty much going to be it for this slate. I do want to talk about OverlayDFS.com really quick. So OverlayDFS.com, it's more of a casual website just to play DFS on. So I'm going to show you guys an example. This is the $22 double deuce contest. So if you want to enter, it's got a $6,460 jackpot if you go 12-0 in your picks, and it pays the top 10% of users 9x their money. So this is a $22 entry, and if you happen to win, you get $180. So if you push join here, it'll take you into what the drafting, how DraftKings would look, the drafting portion of the app. But you pretty much, it's just a start 'em sit 'em website. You pick whoever you think is going to start the score the most points. So say you think Aaron Gordon's going to score more points than Markelle Fultz. It's pretty simple. You just pick Aaron Gordon. If Aaron Gordon happens to outscore Markelle Fultz, you happen to win that matchup. It's as easy as it sounds. I can't make it any more simpler. If you make it more simple, not simpler. If you think Jason Tatum's going to score more than John Morant, which I think is actually a pretty good bet on this slate, you pick Jason Tatum over John Morant, and if Tatum outscores John Morant, you win that matchup. And if you happen to go 12-0 in your picks, you win over $6,000. They're also running a special where if you lose 20 days in a row, it's their Slump Buster program, or challenge, I should say. If you lose 20 days in a row, they will refund every single dollar that you lost. So check it out. It's overlaydfs.com. It's a very simple website. There's no sharks here. You don't have to worry about a whole bunch of mass entry guys like Chipotle on here running the show. So not many people are over here yet. Hopefully we can get some more playing over on Overlay just to make the contest even better. But check it out, overlaydfs.com. Very simple website to play on. I wouldn't recommend it if I didn't play it myself. I do happen to play it, and I have won money before, and they're legit. They pay you out. They paid me out in less than 24 hours. So they're a legit website. It's pretty fun to play on. Good people over there. So check it out, overlaydfs.com. There's no promo code to sign up for me. Just sign up yourself and get playing. So check it out, overlaydfs.com. I hope this video was helpful, guys. If it was, remember to leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. Also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16, and I'll see you guys in the next video.